Today, I'm going to be teaching you batch cooking for two different casseroles that contain very similar ingredients. The first casserole is a Tex-Mex chicken and rice and cheese casserole. The second recipe is a cheesy broccoli chicken and rice casserole. Both of these casseroles have similar ingredients. You will need a starch for each casserole. In this case, I'm using rice as the starch for both recipes. You also always need a protein in a casserole. And for these two recipes, I'll be using chicken breast. I'm also using shredded cheese in both of these casseroles. For the Tex-Mex style casserole, you'll also need a few very specific ingredients just for those Tex-Mex flavors. First, you're gonna need some kind of taco seasoning for your chicken. I love this product. This is by a company called Tastefully Simple, and you order it from a representative who sells it, kind of like a Pampered Chef or Tupperware representative, or you can just go online. This product by Tastefully Simple is called Mom's Favorite Taco Seasoning. What I like about this seasoning, it is pretty mild and it is very kid-friendly. You're also gonna need some creamy or wet ingredients for this casserole. We'll use sour cream in this recipe, also probably a little bit of salsa in this recipe. And for vegetables or added texture, at the end, we're gonna add some kernel corn and some black beans. For the cheesy chicken and broccoli rice casserole, here's what you'll need. You'll need to season your chicken when you cook it. Either boil it on top of the stove with the seasoning, or you can use a crock pot or an Instant Pot. Another seasoning I really like is by the same company called Tastefully Simple, and this is called Makin' Magic Chicken Seasoning. It's a nice blend of onion salt, garlic salt, and some other fresh seasonings. To add some liquid to that casserole, I'm just gonna use Campbell's cream of chicken soup. And for the vegetable, I'm gonna put in some frozen broccoli florets. The first step for each casserole recipe is your starch. You need to prepare long grain rice. It can either be instant type of minute rice or it can be the long cooking rice. It's up to you. Now, in the interest of time and convenience, I like to use my Instant Pot for cooking rice, but you don't need a fancy appliance. You can just read the directions and cook this on a pot of boiling water on top of the stove. Now it's time to cook the chicken. Now there's a few ways you can do this. You can also use the Instant Pot, or you can use a crock pot if you have a crock pot, and you either can cook it on low for 8 to 10 hours, such as overnight, or you can cook it for the morning or the afternoon, such as 4 to 5 hours. Now what I'm gonna do is take a Warehouse Club pack of chicken between 4 and 6 pounds. This right here represents about 6 pounds of chicken. So what I'm gonna do is layer the chicken in the crock pot with the seasoning mix, about 5 or 6 tablespoons of the seasoning mix, and I'm gonna layer that together and then add 2 or 3 cups of water. And then you can either cook it on low, like I said, or on high for 8 to 10 hours. What I love about this batch cooking the most is that if I know someone who's having a baby or having surgery or who just needs some help with some meals at home, I can put these casseroles together in disposable casserole dishes like those foil cake pans that you can buy at the grocery store or at the Warehouse Club. And I can put these ingredients together. They can either freeze them for several weeks or they can refrigerate them for a few days. And then when they're ready, they can just bake them in the oven at 350 for about 1 hour, and their dinner is done for their family. Here's another little tip. Double your batch so that you can make some for your family too. That way, you're not just doing all of this work for yourself, but you're also helping someone out as well. Now that the chicken is cooked and the rice is fully cooked and I cooled it overnight inside the refrigerator, it's time for us to assemble the broccoli cheese rice casserole. So let me give you a few tips. The first thing is you always want to combine your wet ingredients first. Then you can add your chicken and your rice and your shredded cheese. So let's get started. All right, I've selected a bowl here for all of my wet ingredients. And remember, what we're gonna use for wet ingredients is cream of chicken soup and some sour cream. So what I'm gonna do is put the cream of chicken soup in the bowl. I'm gonna use 3 cans because I'm actually making 3 casseroles today of this same recipe. Now that I have put 2 enormous tablespoons of sour cream and 3 cans of cream of chicken soup, then I'm just gonna combine these wet ingredients together until they're completely blended. All right, now that that's done, we're gonna go over here to our chicken breast that we cooked for 10 hours on low in the crock pot last night with the seasoning. You can see I've put it on a cutting board, but honestly, with these tongs, this chicken is so moist and tender, it's just falling apart. So what we're gonna do with our chicken and our rice is we're gonna combine those dry ingredients into this large bowl in just a moment. All right, so I've combined the sour cream and the cream of chicken soup. Now it's time to put the shredded chicken and the rice and the shredded cheddar cheese into the big bowl. This can get a little messy, but just, make all your mess at one time and clean it all up at the very end. All right, so you can see this chicken really fills up this bowl. This was about 6 pounds of chicken from the warehouse club that I cooked all at one time. Okay, I have the chicken in the bowl. Now it's time to get as much of this rice into the bowl as possible. So here we go, I'm just gonna dump it in. See why I need such an enormous bowl? Okay, now I'm really gonna have to put some muscle in this part of the cooking because I did refrigerate this rice overnight. The reason why I do that is so that the rice isn't so hot and makes everything just kind of mush together when you're combining these casserole ingredients. Sometimes you don't have enough dexterity with a spatula and you need to just dive in with your hands and mix up this mixture. So what I like to do is actually wet my hands first. That way the rice and chicken don't stick to my hands. As you're working through with your hands, you can really feel if you need to shred up that chicken pretty evenly. Because what you don't want is just huge chunks of rice and then huge chunks of chicken down in that casserole. You want it to be pretty evenly distributed. Okay, now that we have distributed the rice and the chicken together, now we're gonna put in 2 more of our dry ingredients, and that is shredded cheese, Colby Jack or cheddar, whatever your family prefers, and I have some frozen in the bag broccoli florets. And what I did with these is I microwaved them for only half of the direction amount of time. Because if you microwave them all the way, they will get too cooked, too soft, and too mushy. And then they'll all fall apart when you go to combine them into this massive casserole mixture. So I'm only using 1 bag here. This is 1 pound. And remember, I'm gonna be making 3 large casseroles out of this 1 batch of cooking. All right, now that we have the broccoli in the bowl, it's time to put probably 1 to 1.5 pounds of shredded cheese down into the same bowl. I hope I don't run out of room in this bowl because this is becoming a very large amount of food. All right, you can see I've got the big pile of cheese here on top of this rice, chicken, and broccoli mixture. So it's time once again just to dig in with a spatula and with my hands, if necessary, to combine all of these ingredients together. combined all of the ingredients of the casserole mixture together, it's time for me to distribute this mixture among the dishes that I'm going to use. Now, here's a tip. If you're giving some of these to a friend, or if you just don't like doing dishes, I recommend that you go to the grocery store or the warehouse club and get these cake pans. They're either roasters, lasagna pans, or cake pans. And then what I always do is spray them with a non-stick cooking spray, like butter flavor or just any non-stick cooking spray that you have in the pantry. So for my friend, I'm gonna make it in this foil tray, but for me, I'll go ahead and keep it in a stoneware casserole dish. Another fun thing is if you like to give gifts, you can actually buy a Pyrex or a stoneware dish and give it as a gift to your friend that you're giving the casserole to. All right, now it's time to put the mixture into these pans. Honestly, it's just gonna be easier for me to pick it up with my hands and evenly distribute it in each of the pans. That way I can feel if I have any big pieces of chicken that need to be shredded or big clumps of rice that need to be broken up. All right, now for the finishing touch to give it such a homemade, nice, crunchy finish on the top. You need two final ingredients. You need to get some plain panko style breadcrumbs. Any brand, any store will do. And you want to melt 1 stick of butter in the microwave. Just cover it with a paper plate so it doesn't make a huge mess inside your microwave. And what we're gonna do is make like a little crumb topping to finish off the top of these casseroles. This really makes it homemade tasting. Nice little texture, a little crunch on the top, just like homemade mac and cheese. Many of those recipes do this as well. So what I'm gonna do is shake some of this breadcrumb mixture on top of the casserole. Not a whole lot, but enough that you can see it covering the casserole. Okay, now we're gonna take this Pyrex. I like to use a Pyrex because of that spout, and we're gonna drizzle this butter right on top of these breadcrumbs so that we get a nice little crunch topping at the very end. All right, the cooking prep is all done. Now it's time to wrap these casseroles up, either for your freezer or refrigerator or for your friend. So here's what you wanna do. You wanna take aluminum foil, and I always spray the top of the aluminum foil with non-stick cooking spray. All right, now that all of the cooking prep is done, it's time to wrap these up either for your fridge or freezer or for your friend's fridge or freezer. And let me give you some tips. First, you want to take a piece of aluminum foil, spray the top of it with non-stick cooking spray. That way, when it touches the surface of the casserole and they're baking it, once they peel that foil off, it won't stick to the top of that foil. The next thing I do is I write a little sticky note if I'm giving this to a friend, or sometimes I'll do this just for me so that I remember how to prepare this, or if someone in the family is going to bake this while I'm still at work. All right, so let's cover the dish. I use heavy duty aluminum foil for this application because if you're gonna freeze it for any number of days or weeks, you really want a heavy duty product so that you don't get freezer burn on top of the food. All right, so here's a nice little package of our casserole. I put a little note on here so that my friend or a family member knows exactly what to do. So if they're gonna freeze it, or if you're going to freeze it, the day you want to eat this casserole, you want to put it out for thawing until it is completely thawed. Then you wanna bake it at 350 degrees Celsius for about 40 minutes with the foil still on. Then for another 20 minutes, I want you to remove the foil top and bake it for the rest of that final 20 minutes at that same temperature, 350 degrees. And when this is finished, you will have a hot, delicious casserole. Honestly, there are probably 6 to 8 servings in this one because it's pretty heavy once you put it all together. So in one morning or afternoon, I have prepared probably 20 to 24 dinner servings with this delicious homemade casserole. So I hope you've enjoyed learning this recipe today. I'm Hope George, your recipe realtor and your best hope in real estate. You guys take care.